So it's official. It's official now. The Chicago Bulls are eliminated from play-in contention for the first time in a handful of years. The Chicago Bulls will not have any form of postseason at all. So with the season all but being over with 9 games left, we got to ask the real question. What was the point of this season? Was it a failure, or was it the first step in actually building something new that's going to be more sustainable? And more importantly, what changes are finally really coming this offseason? We're going to talk about it all and more right after this. What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today, y'all. And so the Bulls, after a loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder, have now officially been eliminated from play-in contention, right? That means no shape, form, or fashion of any type of postseason at all for the Chicago Bulls, which one would say that have the Chicago Bulls really had a postseason the last, 4 years being in the play-in? So it is what it is, right? That's just the reality of it. It also now secures Billy Donovan. Well, he's already secured that with us having 44 losses. A fifth losing season with the Chicago Bulls out of the 6 seasons that he's been here. The Bulls are eliminated from that. And so, the Bulls had 3 straight appearances in the play-in tournament, 3 of them. We've been in the play-in tournament basically every year of its existence, right? And we won't be a part of it this year. So I got this question asked. What was the point of the season? What was really the point of the season? Coming into this season, I went back and listened to my episode of questions that the Bulls needed to answer during the 2025-26 season. One of those were, is Coby White and Josh Giddey a backcourt that they feel comfortable investing in during this season? The answer to that was no. It was not. They traded it. One of the questions as well is Iowa DeSumo going to get an extension this year? The answer to that is no, right? So there's that part of it. The other questions were Josh Giddey or anybody else going to make all-star appearances this year? The answer to that was no, right? Could the Bulls actually get into the playoffs? The answer to that was no. So basically the Bulls, every preseason question that I had for the Chicago Bulls, the answer was basically no. Now, Modest did take a step, so the answer to that is yes. Josh Giddey did look more like how he played in March of last year to start off this season, and while he was healthy, he was that, if not even better. So the answer to that was yes, right? And so there were some yeses in there and some important yeses, but what was the point of this season overall, right? I think the point of the season was that AK finally realized that he had to move on from this version of the roster. Now, we already moved on from the DeMar, Alex Caruso, Lonzo Ball. We already moved on from those guys before this season. But AK now has basically removed any attachment. And, this was my theory after the trade deadline. I said, AK, to me, he wanted to remove his personal attachment from Kobe and Io so that he can make an honest evaluation on what the next steps are for this team. And that's what the overall point was, is that AK evaluated where this team was. Now, we know that Kobe was often injured. We were never 100% healthy, but he had to make a choice. And the choice that he made was, all right, we're not gonna invest another possibly $30 million into Kobe, another $18 million into Io. We're not going to do that. We're going to move on from those pieces, and we're going to try to clear the deck. And they clear the deck in an offseason where it makes sense to pivot, right? Regardless of our AK's ability to nail this offseason or not, this was the offseason that if you were going to make a pivot, it made the most sense. You have tons of cap space, $122 million beneath the first tax apron. We'll see how much that you can convert into that to actual cap space to go after other teams' free agents. We'll see that. You have a $20 million trade exception. You have potentially three picks in the first 35 picks in this draft if you get the Portland pick. If not, you still have 2 of the first picks, 35 picks in this draft, which is solid enough to have as well, right? So between the tons of cap space, between the trade exceptions, between the open roster and the flexibility you now have to build this roster and to take the best player available. If the Bulls went into this offseason planning to keep Kobe or Io, they wouldn't necessarily be in a position to take the best player available. Now, I know many people are going to say, well, they should have done that anyway. And I get that, right? But if you're going to pay a player $30 million, you best believe you're going to try to make sure you start that player, right? So now you have an opportunity. And, one of the things I also said is that I think AK looked at this draft and was like, okay, who's slated to go around where we're probably going to potentially pick at if we tank the rest of the way, and realize there's a lot of guards and a lot of wings that are going to be around that area. So let's go ahead and clear that deck. We already don't have, we can move Modest to the 3. We can move Jalen Smith to the 4. Noah Esngate can maybe eventually play the starting 4 next to that, but you can do that. You can draft a 3, leave Modest at the 4. You can draft a shooting guard, do the other thing. So it's that flexibility now that AK has with the roster that I think was the point of the season. You're now going into an asset-rich offseason with the complete flexibility of the roster, basically. The only starters that you have for sure are Josh Giddey and Modest Buzelis. That's it, right? Other than that, Isaac Okoro, who was the starter this year, doesn't have to start. He can come off the bench. Jalen Smith, who finished the season as a starter, doesn't have to start. He can come off the bench depending on what you do this offseason. We don't have a starting caliber center anywhere in Chicago, the city of Chicago, right? Unless you're talking about Camila Cardoso with the Chicago Sky. We don't have one, so you can also do that, right? So there's complete flexibility in what you need and how you can go out and attack. You have the assets, you have the draft picks, you have the cap space, you have the trade exceptions. You have all of that to do it. So I think overall, when we look back at this season, the point of this season was to take the most advantage of the flexibility that you have. Now, it's a downside to it that you moved on from those guys, didn't get a single first-round pick back for any of those guys. It's unfortunate, right? But you got more back from Nikola Vucevic than what was initially rumored. And while Anthony Simons, I still think, is unlikely to stay with this team long-term, you now have his bird rights, which means that even if Anthony Simons does want to go to another team, ideally he's probably going to want to go to a contending team. I'm just going to use this, for example. Let me throw Atlanta out there, right? I'm just going to throw Atlanta out there. If Atlanta, who does have cap space themselves, I want to be clear there, Atlanta does have cap space. But if Atlanta looks at it and says, listen, Anthony Simons is the perfect scorer that we feel can play off of Jalen Smith, but we want to use our cap space to maybe go after another player too, add some to the bench, you know what they can do? They can do a sign and trade. They can do something like that to help facilitate some of that and still get the bird rights, right? So there's that part of it that you're looking at if you're the Chicago Bulls, is that not everybody, whether you keep them or not, that doesn't stop them from being an asset depending on how you use it in the offseason. I think that's something that some people forget, is that, yeah, a player could want to walk, but you can actually facilitate and help them get more money or even slide into a team that doesn't necessarily have cap space. We talked about a team like Atlanta that does have cap space. You look at a team, that is right up against it. Let's say like the Houston Rockets, maybe they want to do something and you can facilitate the sign and trade. So the flexibility is there, and that's the overarching thing. We just got to see how AK is going to use it, right? Now, the next question is, will there really be changes this offseason? Of course, we've heard the rumblings. We've talked about it. I think I've covered it on the last 3 videos with different news coming out each day that Billy Donovan could choose to walk away from the Chicago Bulls. That was always the way that you can get Billy off the Bulls. He was going to have to choose to walk away from the Chicago Bulls. But it seems like via personal things that have happened in his life, with passings away in his family, on top of now Kansas and UNC jobs popping up, that it could put you in a situation where you legitimately now have to do a new coaching search. Then when you pair that with other things that we've heard from, like 670 The Score, that, there's seriously being talked about of changes happening in the front office of the Chicago Bulls, we can actually see some change that Bulls fans have called for and wanted to see for a while. Now, it doesn't necessarily seem like AK is going to not be there, but Mark Eversley, head coaching, I think we need new eyes. Regardless of that, you can get those new eyes. And hell, we know the Reinsdorfs aren't above hiring somebody to be the replacement of somebody already on that's in your employ. So even the Bulls do hire a new GM, yes, they're still working under AK, but we have seen the Reinsdorf put somebody in position as a spy, so to say, and be like, all right, let's go see what's going on there. Let us know how you feel about it. And then that person could get promoted. I mean, weirder things have happened, even in the Chicago Bulls front office, but the roster's already changed. We already know we've gotten change with the roster. That's going to continue this offseason. But if front office coaching changes start as well, that's when we can really maybe start seeing significant change with the way that we operate as a team, and we'll see that's going to happen. But even throughout all of that, there's still been some bright spots this year, right? I want to talk about Modest Buzelis for one. He did take a step this year. It wasn't the leap that a lot of Bulls fans were hoping to see. Some of y'all said some crazy things like Modest averaging 20, being an all-star and all that this year. That did not happen. But Modest did take a significant step up. Not only did he grow offensively, and he's continued to grow as a three-point shooter, taking double the amount of three-point shots he took last year, but still hitting it at slightly better percentage. But Modest Buzelis has also turned into one of the best isolation one-on-one defenders in the league. This isn't hyperbole. This is objective stats. Modest Buzelis is giving up like a 29% of field goal shooting percentage on isolation. That's a really good place to work in. Now we know, like, pick and roll defense is still a problem. Sometimes basketball IQ and when not to foul is still a problem for Modest. But the fact that Modest has already shown that step from rookie year to this year being one of the best isolation defenders in basketball is huge for a player who's one of their pre-draft knocks was their defense. Defense and shooting were two of the biggest pre-draft knocks by Modest Buzelis. He has worked on those. Now, other things have popped up, like no mid-range game. Everything's either at the three-point line or at the rim, right? We need to get that mid-range game in there. Turnovers sometimes we need to get together. I want to see him get to the free throw line more. But the fact that he's already turned two of his biggest weaknesses in his pre-draft process into strengths, now we're cooking with something that we can continue to build on. Also, another bright spot. Josh Giddey in the postseason presser last year said, who I was in March is more like who I'm going to be as a player for Chicago. And he's proven those words to be right. Of course, injury, it took him a knockdown in his stats, but Josh Giddey has been every bit of that to start off the season, and that is a good place to be with, to have a player that you can build with, right? Not saying necessarily we're building everything around Josh Giddey, but at least right now he's shown himself a player that you can build with because of his ability to manipulate the defense, make players better around him, and he's done that with players throwing lobs to players like Nick Richards. Imagine improving that, right? So Josh Giddey has shown it. Then you have another bright spot in Leonard Miller. Leonard Miller is a bright spot. I'm not saying he's going to work out to be a starter. I'm not saying he's going to be a six man or anything like that, but you got somebody back in a trade that has literally showed himself. You give him minutes, he's going to be productive for you. That's a bright spot. And then you still have Trey Jones and Jalen Smith, two younger veterans who are absolutely positives for you when they're on the basketball court, and they can be positive. They fit in with what you already have here as part of your core. And then the question becomes, too, is that even if you do look to flip them, cheap contracts, which teams could be interested in, and you can get something back for them. So either way, that's a bright spot as well for the Bulls. So, a lot of negative for the Bulls and a lot of questions that are left still to be answered with some bright spots on this season. And now we got to figure out how we're going to go out and attack the offseason. That's really what it becomes about. Are changes really coming here? And are the changes on the court, and we're going to start seeing improvement with the younger roster set? Let's see if that ends up being the case. With that said, though, it is Saturday. It means it is mailbag day. Let's get into these voicemails, man. We got 4 we got to get into. This first one that we got, this one's from Sean.
What up, Haize? Sean here calling. Calling, tell you the show's awesome. Keep it up. But I know a lot of Bulls fans are upset with the Bulls because, we started the tank too late. We started this, we started that. The one thing that I will give the Bulls credit for is Josh Giddey and Modest Buzelis. If they're winning you games, that's a good thing, right? You've said it all the time, and you're right. If Josh Giddey and Modest are the reason you win games, you can't really be mad at that. You want that. You want that for development. You want that for chemistry. But my daughter, she's 5. The other day we were watching the Bulls, and I forget who we were watching. But they're doing the thing. They're getting blown out, and my daughter goes, at least those 2 players are playing good. She's talking about Modest and Josh. So trying to raise the next iteration of the Chicago Bulls generation of fans. Hopefully for them it's better than it was for us. But that's just my rant. Sorry for ranting on, but have a good one. I do hope that the Bulls can draft Keaton Wagler or Braden Burries. I think those guys would be perfect next to Josh Giddey. Have a good one.
I completely agree with you. If Josh Giddey and Modest Buzelis are the reason why you win any game, that's a bright spot. I don't care what point it is in the season. I don't care that you're tanking. I don't care of any of that. You want to see those 2 young players not only work on their chemistry together, but you want to see them continue to round out and work on their games. And now having this opportunity as well where so much is on them. Josh Giddey didn't live up to his end of the bargain last night against OKC. I want to be clear there. But seeing so much of them, stepping up at the right times and right moments, that's what you want to see. That helps the mentality part of it. Now you go into the offseason, attack it. And these are 2 guys as well. They're going to play a lot of basketball in the offseason. We already know that, right? So you're going to see that. And so I love what we're seeing from them. I don't get where people complain if they are the reason why you win games. And that doesn't mean that other players are going to, like, some people take this as, well, if Josh Giddey and Modest are the reason why you win games, well, then why is Colin Sexton scoring 25? Because his role is to score. Like, his role is to do that. But he's doing that off of Josh Giddey, off of Modest Buzelis. So, yeah, as long as you do that, I don't see why people are mad at it, but then again, people are going to be mad to be mad. But all right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from Jerry.
Hey, Haize. This is Jerry from Southern Illinois. I just was coming back to you about that 6 players left on to pick in a roster after the season's over. And I was thinking that, we need 2 centers, possibly 3 if you draft one and work with him just to even put him in a G League for a little while. Plus you need 2 guards. And one of those guards I'd like to see him draft a kid out of Illinois real bad. I love that kid. And they're going to need 1-2 wings. Okoro, I'm not sure what they're going to do with him, or if he has any guard skills. I don't see him dribble much. So I'm not sure about Okoro. Not a bad ball player, but and I got a hunch they might trade Trey Jones. They might trade him just to move up in the draft because he's an awful good guard. I hate to see him go, to tell you the truth. And Yabusele, he looks pretty good to me too. And then possibly bring in Nick Richards. He's looked fine. Zach Collins, who knows about him? He's sure not going to get much money, not always hurt. And then find a third center. That's kind of my thoughts right now on those 6 spots. Thank you for your time. Bye.
I disagree that we need 3 centers. I think that's just a bit much. I think that's over. Most rosters have 2, and then you have a guy that can play 3 and 4. We have that in Jalen. So I don't think we need 3 centers. I think that we are going to try to go after a center in restricted free agency. We may draft one if we get the Portland pick. And if those be the 2 things we have, that's probably it. Now, maybe they bring back Nick Richards in that case because he's going to be cheap to maintain. I don't know about Collins with his injury, but Nick Richards has injuries as well. But we'll see, right? As far as the other things that you point out, I don't know if you need 2 forwards. We got Modest, Noah, Jalen, Leonard Miller, and Isaac Okoro. And as much as I don't want him to see him play, Patrick Williams is still on the roster, so I don't know if we need 2 forwards. It's going to be a mix, and I think you're also looking at it as more so of a binary way. Like, you got to remember, players play multiple positions now in the NBA, so you're going to see multiple players play multiple positions. So, that's the thing. And I think versatility is going to be one of the things that you look at as well. The Bulls very well could target like Peyton Watson and Walker Kessler if they draft a guard, and that could be a legitimate thing that they do, and we'll see what happens there. All right, let's get into this next one, man. This one's from VJ.
Hey, Haize. This is BJ here. Hey, I just wanted to see what you thought about Cam Thomas. If the Bulls should try to get him, they definitely could use some more shooting, and he's definitely a shooter. Looks like he's had trouble, though, where he's been. Went to the I think he was with the Knicks, then he went to he just wound up in Milwaukee. And so he was in Brooklyn and got traded to Milwaukee. And Brooklyn waived him, and now Milwaukee just waived him yesterday. And I'm just trying to figure out, like, what's going on. And during the trade deadline, I thought that the Bulls could use a guy like him, but I just wanted to get your thoughts. All right, take care.
I don't think there's any point in getting Cam Thomas with 9 games left. Like, I don't think there's any point in that, in my personal opinion. Like, just ride it out with what you have this season. You're not really going to learn much. You're not going to have time to really incorporate him learn to play. Even if you do have an interest in him in the offseason, there's no point in signing him right now. Just wait till the offseason, do that then. The runway that we have, if we had like 15 games left, maybe. We got 9 games left on the season. Ain't no time or no need to sign anybody else at this point in time. I mean, I get what you're getting at with Cam Thomas and his ability off ball, even though the lack of size, things like that. But I think at this point, like, we could very well be drafting the guard too. So I don't think there's no point in that. Cam Thomas, I think, he's a flawed player, but he is a player that does have some promise. I think he needs to go to a place where he can kind of be him. And maybe much like Anthony Simons with Boston Celtics this year, like, Yeah, his stats weren't the same, but his impact was more, right? Playing on a winning team. Maybe Cam Thomas needs to embrace something like that as well. We'll see. All right, let's get into this last voicemail for today, man. This one's from Reggie.
Hey, this is Reginald, and I'm just calling to talk about your last video about who the Bulls might draft and whether or not Billy leaving is a good thing. Me personally, I would prefer to see Billy go because even though he might have had different suggestions about which players to draft, like Derek Queen and Walker Kessler, it doesn't change the fact that he still, struggle to make in-game adjustments when situation change. It does change the fact that there were games he should have won, and instead of winning, he got blown out. A perfect example would be the play-in game against Miami last year, which should have been a win, turned into a damn near 30-point loss. We saw him lose control of the team multiple times. Once when Zach was here, which is one of the reasons why they traded him. I guess they thought maybe if you get rid of him, that would solve a problem. Another time was this year where clearly the team wasn't listening to him. And, AK decided to tear it all down. But the problem isn't with the players. The problem is with the coaches and the front office. And as long as those two are the same, there's nothing you can do. But even with Billy gone, you have to bring in a competent coach. Not really just competent, but a coach who can, like I said earlier, make the adjustments, can evaluate talent, put guys in the right places to succeed, develop them. And I also believe AK has to go because if we saw him choose Noah Estegay over Derek Queen, and we saw him choose Dalen Terry over Walker Kessler. Those decisions are fireable to me, where you constantly choose potential upside over, guys who are so obviously NBA starters that even us experienced guys can see, like, yeah, they have a place. But, for me, if the Bulls still have the number 9 or 10 spot in this draft, I want them to draft Yasser Lindbergh. I know this, if he falls to where Miami or OKC is, they're going to take him. And if they want him, I want him. That's how, that's why I think it's supposed to draft him. What's your opinion?
There's a big difference in a team like the Thunder wanting Axel Lindenberg versus the Bulls. They're contending right now. They're a championship team right now. So getting a 24-year-old, one of the oldest players in this draft, makes sense for them because he can come in right away, jump away, especially if they let Isaiah Hartenstein go. The Bulls need to focus more on upside, but also ceiling, like I said. Floor as well, high floor as well. That's why I don't think Yaxel is going to be the pick by the Bulls. I just don't think it makes sense to draft a 24-year-old when the Bulls are really like 3 years away from being in contention if everything breaks right for them. And so I just don't really think that that's the case for the Bulls. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if they do draft him, but I think if we're talking about the players that can turn, like Yaxel, I don't think is ever going to turn into a star. I think he's going to be a damn solid starter, but if the Bulls may want to take a shot, and they probably should, on a player that can turn into a legitimate star. And I think that's what they're going to do, Reggie. But we'll see how the draft works out. Once the draft order is actually known after the lottery, I think we'll have a better kind of idea of how the draft is going to play out. But that's going to do it for today, though. I appreciate everybody who left a voicemail on today's episode. You guys as well can leave voicemails for tomorrow's mailbag episode. I'll tell you how to do that in a second. The season may be over, but things are about to really get started. I want to ask you guys, do you look at this season as a failure or as the necessary factory reset that was needed for the Bulls to make a step into the right direction? And do you think AK can get it right this time? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. You can follow us at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullscentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number 1 spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.